everybody, I'm Tom Vasel.
I'm Chris Yi.
And I'm Wendy Yi.
And today we're taking a look at the 87th entry into the T series. Actually, I think it's like the 6th.
6? It feels like there's been a lot.
6.5.
And then I'm not sure if Terracotta Army counts as one or not, but it starts with the T, but
it's not the name of a location?
But it's not a Turksy nor Tishini design, so I don't know.
Anyway, this is Tiletum. I think I'm pronouncing it correct.
I think Dave Luza might have said it's Tiletum, but everyone I've heard say Tiletum, so that's what I'm
Really, everyone out here says Tiletum.
Okay,
well, I don't know. But anyway.
Tum.
Between this and Teotihuacan, we've got it down.
This is a game in which you do mechanisms. I don't know what the theme is.
Merchants.
Oh, you're going around the fairs.
Yeah.
That's right. You're going around and you're helping
merchants.
build famous buildings in France.
Mm-hmm.
And Europe.
By teleporting around.
I think England's in there too. London's in there.
That's true. You can go to
It's
London
all over
too.
Europe.
I think. Yeah, you're just building famous buildings.
There's
anyway.
in Germany. There's other countries. There's other
London
countries in
to
Europe than
the
France,
bay.
Tom. Way to be a stereotypical American. Europe is just France.
I didn't say. Is it more? I know it's more. I guess it's more France. Whatever. I just Notre Dame's on there, and I kind of blinded me to all the other buildings. Anyway, here's how it plays by Wendy.
In the game of Tiletum, we're all merchants and we're moving across Europe trying to invest in cathedrals, we're fulfilling contracts, we're going to festivals, and we're trying to influence the king on the king track. We're also building up houses and doing some other stuff, and we're doing all of that by taking actions over here on this little dice selection action board. Let's start with talking about this action selection wheel over here. This is going to turn throughout the game, changing what each action is worth. But what you're going to do is you're going to draft a single die. This die will give you the amount of resources based on pips, and then the inverse of it is going to be how many action points you get for that particular action. So this wagon action is going to be a single action point for that, whereas we'll get 6 stone. You also, if there's any bonus chips, you'll take these chips and you'll place them in your board. Since there are a variety of actions in the game, I'm going to go ahead and talk about these first 3 first. The character action over here, you're going to be selecting and spending action points to collect these characters. They have a type in the bottom right and a benefit in the top left, and you're going to be also spending action points to place them in your buildings. As you complete buildings, you'll unlock new houses that you can build on the map later. And then there's also ways to get coat of arms by spending food down here for extra bonus actions and such. Next is the contract action. This over here lets you select one of these contracts based on action points. You then place it in your available area, and you can spend these goods at any time for a free action to unlock a pillar and to fill in this space, scoring these points immediately. The King Favors track lets you move up per action point. And at the end of the round where you're at will give you this many victory points or minus that many victory points, because throughout the round these tiles will flip over and everyone's discs will move down, and so you have to constantly be moving them up as they move down. Finally, let's talk about this map over here. This is where a lot of the game happens. You have your little wagons, which will move around and build houses, and then you have your architects, which will build pillars. And wherever you have a pillar built, you can invest in a cathedral. You spend this many stone, you get that victory points versus whatever victory points are in the top of the cathedral, and you collect that permanently. You can also, with either one of these moving characters, gain these little bonus tiles. They go in your waiting area, and then you can spend them for a free action or free resources at any time for a free action during the game. Now, you're also trying to get to these places where the festivals are happening. The festival, the first one at the end of the first round, will begin in Tiletum. It is a 4-round game, and so you're going to have to either have a house there or your wagon to be able to score for the festival at the end of the round. So right here, this one is for however many pillars you have on the board. It would be 2 plus 2, which is 4, times the amount of pillars. You get those points immediately. And then these are how many coat of arms. This is a variety of other stuff. So they all do different scoring, and basically you have to move around, dropping off houses or just keeping your little wagons there, trying to score throughout the festivals. So the game continues. You're building up on the map, taking all the other actions. You're going to draft 3 dice per round, and you're also going to do an end of round scoring of the festivals and the king track at the end of each round. After the 4 rounds, you'll then do some end game scoring. The end game scoring is as such. It is houses times pillars for points. Every 4 goods that you have is a point. And then for these buildings that you have over on your building board, the ones that you fully completed with a coat of arms underneath, there's a multiplier bonus for that as well. So that is how you play Tiletum. Let's tell you what we think about it.
Before we get into the game, I'm mind boggled about a component issue in this game. I don't know if you mentioned in the overview of
Is
the
it
dice.
the dice?
Yes.
I didn't mention in the overview.
It's everyone has complained about this. So
Yes.
there are 3 colored dice in there. There's gray, light gray, dark gray, and a bluish gray that
Yes.
match the resources. And I can't remember playing a game where someone didn't go which is which, to the point where I put a die next to each one, but that only works if those dice aren't drawn from the bag. Like if all of one color is out of the bag, I can't do that.
Right.
Yeah, in a lower player count game, you have some dice that are not thrown in, so you could do that.
I honestly, I think that there are a couple component issues that I have with this game, or just some component decisions that I have that honestly I think did lower my score. They don't typically, but they did. So the dice are a huge problem, but also the contracts, the character faces, and the bonus tiles all have 3 and 4 players, and pulling those out is just so much work every single game. Like, it's already a lot of setup, but then you have to dump out this whole bag of tiles, go through them, and then dump out a whole nother bag of tiles, go through them. You have to do that 3 times just to adjust it to player count.
I think I've decided from now on, because now that we've played enough, I know that doesn't really matter. Like, it's not an end game trigger or anything, so I'm just going to leave them in there. And if you draw a 3-4 in a 2-player game, throw it to the side.
Oh, I do that a lot in
But
games,
I tried
actually.
that, and it was just because there's 3 bags, like there's 3 chunks of it.
Yeah.
It just made it really fiddly trying to just leave them in and draw till I find one I can use.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm still
found
doing that from
annoying.
now on, though.
Yeah, so it lowered it like half a point for me between those couple of things because it was really frustrating.
yeah, I was excited, like, when I saw the resource. I mean, hey, because Board&Dice has had a bad habit of making all the resources the same color lately.
Right,
And I
there's
was
a
like,
small little picture on a tan tile, and the graphic designer talked to me at Essen and said, I colored them because you guys complain about it. And I thought, thank you.
That was
Perfect, yes,
fantastic.
that was good.
Yeah.
But then the dice, anyway.
It's unfortunate.
Again, you'll get over it, I think. And we eventually did, but there were still many times where I was like, I want that die because that's not stone. And then I had to rethink my whole action.
Yes.
Yeah.
On that note, though, the dice system, the action selection, I thoroughly enjoyed. I love that idea of an inverse relationship between the amount of pips on the die, which is the resources you get, and the action points that you get. I love that because you're always getting equivalently the same amount of stuff, but you have to make that decision of, do I want those resources? Do I want to work on those contracts? Do I want to move up? Or do I want to do a lot of an action because there's some really cool stuff you can do with having a lot of action points?
Yeah, and the rotating of the action wheel changes the values each round. It's funny because it's only a 4-round game.
I was going to bring that up.
So you don't make it to everything.
So yeah, not
Yeah.
everything will be a different value. It will
Few
be every
actions
value.
never are awesome.
Yeah, that's weird to me. I like this system, but I look at them and I think, oh, okay. I have to know that this action will never be great this game, or it'll be great the first round, and then will be terrible every round after that. And I guess that leans into you have to strategically plan based on setup, but some games I am just like, why don't that one be good? Especially if it's right next to the wild action, because the wild action also might never be good.
Yeah, I almost would, when I set the wheel up, I might be like, we're setting it up this way. Like, I might not, like, especially the two, the architect and the ones where you move around on the board.
Yeah.
In the one game I played, they started on 1-2 and 2-3.
And they were just slow
and you
the whole
never
game.
really got to move around the board. And you have to move around the board if you want to score in the between stuff.
Oh my gosh, yes.
But we also played a game where that King's Crown track was really big the first round. So whoever was first player took that huge
right.
action and stayed first player the entire rest of the game because there's no way to catch up.
Yes, well, actually, I'll come back to King's Crown Jacks. The dice thing. I like that in theory a lot. I like the concept of a lot of resources or a lot of actions. Although, I definitely lean towards a lot of actions is better than a lot of resources. Straight up. Sometimes you
but
need
there's
this
time.
6 gold or whatever, because that being able to switch a die to another spot, which I think they could have dedicated another whole paragraph to in the rule book, by the way. They're like, you move it over here, then you get to take that action and those resources. I'm like, do you physically move the die to bonus die? I looked it up, and there's many questions online asking about how exactly that die moves. Does a die physically move?
Is it virtual? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think I could explain it more. But the problem with the die mechanism, by far, and since you guys probably mostly played with 2, you haven't noticed, is it leads to the most analysis paralysis I've seen in a game in a long time when you play with 3 or 4. And the reason for that is you literally can't decide what you're going to do on your turn. You have to wait till it's your turn. Because I might say, I want to take that action. There's 2 dice there. They both might be taken. There's a wild die. Maybe I want to do that. But you don't know. And so not only are they taking the die, but they might go to a city and take the bonus tile that I was going to take. I have to rethink I can't plan ahead at all. I mean, I guess you can, but I can't plan ahead with any kind of certainty.
You have to have a couple different ideas beforehand of what you want to do.
Yeah, but I'll tell you, I'm like, I have this great idea. And then, I hate you so much. And that person's not even like messing you over on purpose.
Yeah.
Right.
But it's just...
It's a type of interaction you don't enjoy.
It really slows it down. And the other thing about that is even though it's a cool mechanism, it brings back something I just recently complained about a lot, which is the whole...
Action points.
Action points.
I know you don't like
6
that.
action points.
And I can't tell you, like, the action points for some things are fine. Like, I'm trading resources. But in 2 places, moving people on the board where the person says, I'm going to move here, I'll take that tile, and then move here. Hang on a second. I'm like, because you can do so many things. And then the people, I'll take this person. Do I want to move them here? And I'm like, oh, my word. And I like the people action.
Yeah.
Yes.
But the people action, the architect action, and the merchant action, when those 3 are picked, or the wild action, so it's 4 of the 6 actions, the contract is a little easier because you know what contract you want.
And they don't reset
you
at the
take
end of
that,
it, yeah.
and they don't reset. I wish the people didn't reset, honestly, because that also slows that down. They take one, reset.
It is interesting that they had different reset rules for every different type of tile.
That's
It's a little strange.
Why can't I don't understand why the contracts can't move. Okay, well, anyway, I think analysis paralysis, I don't think you should play this game before, straight up.
Having not played it at 4, I will not because
It's a lot.
you got to agree on a few things. If you start moving your merchant around and say, I don't know if I like that, just take it. It's not that important.
Because you have to remember where the stuff went back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is one of those games where it's not worth the backtracking, the take-backs and stuff. I'm very okay when Wendy and I are playing a game if we take things back. I didn't think that through. This is one of those games where I'm like, let's just keep going.
Just keep going.
It's okay if I flubbed this round. That's fine.
This also has a lot of executive actions, so if you are worried about all those take-backsy, having all those free actions does that too. However, I really enjoy games that have executive actions, like those free things that you can do on top of your turn. I saw someone describe it as almost having a roll and write feel, that you trigger one thing, which lets you do these other free things, and so you kind of, your little turn of, I'm going to move my little architect on the board, ends up turning into this big turn where there's a lot going on. Now I've collected contracts that I already can trade in, that I can get another pillar, and then I can put this pillar out.
But again, that adds to the analysis paralysis.
It does, but I adore that stuff. It makes me feel so good. Like there's tons of those like reward endorphin, is that the right word I'm looking for? Moments where it's like, yes, I get to do this, this, and this, and because I did that, I get to do these 3 other things. I love it. I absolutely love that.
Did this game give a tip guide? Because there's 2 things I wish the game had told me beforehand. One is get the coat of arms or the seals. They're like really important.
Oh, so you get the bonus actions?
They're rare. All right, you need to get those bonus actions.
Yeah.
But those coats of seals, you can only get if they randomly show up from the contract line, which again, you can't manipulate on your turn. So if there's none there, you can't get it. So then you're just running around the board to try to grab them. Or you might get super lucky and are on that stupid...
Which if you're playing a game where you can't run around the board easily, you're not getting those bonus tiles.
Right, but those are important. And then also, the people action, concentrating on that early on so that the other actions get better. I almost feel like the game doesn't allow you to skip doing that. Because I tried it and got trounced. Everyone else was like, oh, I get an extra 2 actions here. And I was like, oh yeah, that seemed like a good early game thing to do. Getting the people late game does not give you those same kind of... That's definitely an early game thing.
I definitely did it late game in one of the games that we played, and I didn't have a problem. But maybe that's a 2-player thing.
And it also depends on where the action wheel is and what other bonuses you get. If you get enough bonuses that say, hey, do 2 free people actions, you can compensate for not really leaning into, leaning into certain actions. There's a lot of variability with the board setup from the get-go. And I don't know, I find those issues rewarding to kind of work through in this game. Not every game do I find it that way, but this one is one of those.
It's got a good build to it, I feel like. Like, you can build up those characters and you can get, more houses out. You can add bonuses to your actions. You do that cool stuff. Or you can do stuff on the board that then is moving around. You're collecting all those bonus tiles and you're getting all those one-time flips. You're like, oh yeah, look at me. I'm doing this, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. So I think that there's a lot of fun, different ways that you can build up, and you don't have to go one strategy. I don't feel like there's a direction where they're like, this is the only one choice that will let you succeed and win.
Especially if the people, because they have, like, the bonus actions go to an associated specific action. If that's not an action you want to beef up, you know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of
I know, but that's another thing. I'm like, oh, well, that's the action I want. Oh, there's no those people out there.
Yeah.
But there's 2 things I actively dislike about the game. One is I hate that King's track so much, because it does something I don't like in games, which is like every round it's like, haha, you're going backwards. Thanks. Haha. And then you get negative points. It could have been positive. The whole track could have been positive, and you just get fewer points. I hate the fact that, and again, it just makes me feel bad for no reason. It's like, if you don't do anything on that track, you're gonna get murdered and go backwards and lose points. If everyone's doing it, who cares? But going forward on the track not only lets you go first in turn order, but also gets you points, but the action itself is boring compared to the other 5 actions.
It is a boring action. I agree with that, and I agree that I don't like that the first player's connected to it, because it resets if you go in the negative, but it doesn't reset if you go in the positive. And so I feel like once someone's ahead, they stay ahead. But I don't mind the negative. And I don't mind that it resets to 0.
It's just a mind setting.
Yeah,
I get it.
That doesn't bother me.
Mathematically, I just was like, and the fact that everyone moves backwards is just kind of like, meh. And I guess they did that so that if you're positive, you don't stay positive. But it's not strong enough to bring them back. And it's annoying if you're not taking that action. The other thing I don't like is I don't like that this game gives you this illusion of so many things to do. I mean, actually, it's not an illusion. You can do all these things. But those scoring tiles, the festivals, you better do what they say. You better go to that festival. You can skip festivals at your peril. But if the festival says, for example, you get one for building buildings, you should build buildings. You know what I mean? It's the same problem I have with Terra Mystica in a sense. It's like, what am I going to do at the beginning? I guess I'm doing that because that's what's out there. And
you also don't, like, you could spend all your time building up those buildings, but then you don't get your little caravan down there, or you don't build a house there, and then, sorry, you don't get those points.
And that is a little frustrating when you have it and you're like, I need to get there now. And then someone takes the die.
Sure.
And you're like, so now how do I get to and that can be frustrating unless you're like me and you're just like, forget the festivals, which also, by the way, is not a good way to win the game.
I was surprised there wasn't more endgame scoring.
There's not.
The endgame scoring is not very strong. A multiplier between your houses and your columns does not begin to match what those festivals do.
A decent strength festival is going to be worth more than your endgame scoring, and there's 4 of them.
Yeah.
That's one of my gripes. I think there should be a player aid.
Yes.
Yeah.
With those executive actions and stuff. They're written nowhere except like page 16 in the middle down here.
Yeah. Another design issue.
And I feel like the end game scoring is lackluster. But I do like the mid game scoring so much. But I just sit there and say, oh, okay, Wendy's like 20 points ahead of me. Now let's do end game scoring. You're now 18 points ahead of me.
Right. I mean, if you think about it, you can get, I guess, let's say you have a really great game and you get 5 and 5, which seems pretty good, right? Or maybe even 6 and 6, but that seems really crazy. That's a lot of points, but again, they probably also did decently. It's not going to swing the game unless one person didn't build any of the stuff, and in which case they probably weren't doing well at the festivals anyway.
Yeah.
You have to build houses to do the festivals or have your guy there. For me, overall, I like the concept of this. I like taking the die to get resources and the actions. That 7 minus the die thing, that works for me. That's great. I just hate the AP that comes with it. Mm-hmm. I like the freedom to do different things. Oh, you're building buildings? Oh, I'm going to go build houses. You're building people. I like that concept a lot. But then again, I don't like the way the festivals makes a lot of what you do a moot point unless you head to the festivals.
focus in.
So this is a 6 for me. I don't dislike the game. At 4, I'll give this a 3. Okay, I want to be clear. But some of my favorite games like Le Havre, I also give a very low score to with more players. So I'm not saying that's a negative thing about the game. You just need to know that going in, that I will not play this with 4. You could get me to play it at 3. But even then, I don't know. There's just there's just a lot of little things that keep me from loving it. So that's a 6 for me.
Okay.
I'm going to come in at an 8 for this one. I like this a lot, with the caveat of I have no interest whatsoever in playing this 4-player. It's just, I just can't see it being that much fun watching people go, I have 6 action points plus my bonus 3 on the side, and going, oh, okay, we're going to be here for a while. That being said, I think this is a fantastic 2-player game. I do take a little bit of issue with some of the things that we've talked about. And so that is why it's not, I'm not giving this a seal of excellence, but I am really recommending this if you like these designers. I think that these designers do great, interesting things with dice drafting mechanisms. They
are my 2 favorite designers.
Yeah, with contract fulfillment, with lots of different avenues to score points, but how much do you focus in each thing? You can specialize in one thing and do great. You can dabble in a lot of things and also do great. I don't mind the Terra Mystica-esque, here's the 4 scoring objectives throughout the course of the game, because, the first one, you better do that stuff quick. But that 4th one, you can kind of be working towards it over the course of the game, and you can kind of
as long as you get to that city.
As long as you get to that city, right? So I like that. That doesn't bother me at all. This is an 8. I really like this one.
Okay, I'm also going to give this an 8. It was going to be an 8.5, but I just felt like there were just those few things that just didn't get it there for me, which is sad. But I still highly recommend it. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And honestly, for me, I would play this at a convention of 4 players. I wouldn't have a problem with that. I don't mind that.
I will wave at your
AP.
4-hour game.
No, you do it. You do it. I love just that sense of feeling like there's so much to do, and on a turn I get to do a lot, and that one thing triggers another. And I really enjoy also the fact that there's so many different strategies and things that you can invest in and go in, that you're not just stuck on one action. If someone takes the die that I want and I don't have that die and I don't have that action available, if I do something else, it's still going to be great. I'm still going to have a lot of fun and be able to explore, and then I'll just come back to that action later, or I'll find some other way to get there through bonus tiles. I adore the bonus tiles. How there's so many, they give you actions, they give you resources, they give you contracts. Like, there's just a lot of different stuff going on. And I think that it's a game of almost like Feast for Odin, in the sense of like there's so much extra. Like, I feel like there's a lot of extra and abundance going on.
Well, there you go. Folks, that's the newest T game, Tiletum. Check it out. Until next time, I'm Tom Vasel.
I'm Chris Yi.
And I'm Wendy Yi.
I don't have anything to say.